Hello. Hello. What's that? I can't hear you. I can't hear you over the sound of this sweet, luxurious t-shirt that I got for super cheap. So first of all, you may be asking yourself, why does Rob have this ridiculous t-shirt on that looks like trash? And why is it such low quality? Well, first of all, the person that's on the t-shirt is also low quality. And the reason why I'm wearing this t-shirt is because I lost a bet with a gentleman right here named Simon Dixon. Simon, welcome to the stage.
I've been waiting for this moment. Q1 2024.
I know. I thought for sure. I thought that they would blow through this ETF and just say no, and then we would be here. So I was like, you know what? What I'm going to do, I'm going to bet Simon Dixon that if they do hit an ETF, I'll wear a shirt that says, I heart Mashinsky. And of course, I'm not going to wear that kind of shirt. What I thought would be best is if I wore, and for those of you that can't see this in full, great, beautiful detail, I'm just going to throw this up. This is what the t-shirt actually looks like. I was waiting for it to actually come through, but didn't. But this is the one that we have right now. And again, you may say to yourself, why is it such low quality? Again, the person that's doing this is also low quality. So that's what it was. So Simon, you won the bet. Congratulations. I got to tell you, it was not a bad bet to go through, because everybody's happy now with this ETF. We're going to talk about the day if it really is that happy, but this is where we're at. So how are things going, Simon?
Yeah, really good. It's bittersweet. So I think you took a bet where you don't mind losing. You have to wear the Mashinsky t-shirt, which I think you would have loved me to worn. I don't even think you would have liked me to worn it. That's how that's how much we love him. But yeah, we had a bet last year. This is when the SEC was causing all sorts of havoc in our industry. Mm-hmm. We knew that they were clearing the way from the exchanges they didn't like. The Binances of this world came a bit later. And they were getting the TradFi industry ready to get into Bitcoin. We had a speculative bet. I got to be honest, I didn't know I was going to win it, but it was fun. But I said Q1 2024, and here we are.
And here we are. Nailed it. Nailed it, buddy. You nailed it. So everybody, of course, this will be the t-shirt itself. The gentleman I'm talking to right now is Simon Dixon. You can follow him on YouTube, close to 100,000 subscribers. Congratulations. Also Twitter. I've linked both. Actually, I've linked all three. You can also check out Bank to the Future, where this is Simon's company, where they've invested in the small little things like the Kraken, Bitfinex, Ethereum, small stuff. And you can find that, again, all in the description. So, Simon, we got a lot of things to talk about today. I don't know if you heard about this, but this ETF.
Yeah, it's been a while. So the ETF is here. I think we're on day 2 of trading. Mm-hmm. And we had, obviously, I'm sure you covered it in depth. We had the Gary Gensler hack and rug pull. Yeah. We had weeks and weeks of speculation. We had the SEC teaching everyone that you should have 2FA, but the SEC doesn't take that lesson. That causes massive market manipulation. And so we did get a lot of market manipulation. And it turns out that, the ETF is very much a buy the rumor, sell the news if you're a short-term trader. But I'm still very, very bullish on the impact that it actually has.
Yeah, and that's what
we're on our second day.
Yeah, that's perfect. That's a perfect segue. That's what we're going to get into because people were expecting fireworks that really didn't happen. Just to put everybody into like a little timeline, this ETF, it was close to not going through, in all honesty. And we covered this yesterday on the NFA Live. You have the commissioners for the SEC, and then the chair, of course, is Gensler. Hester Pierce, Crypto Mom, and these are the ones that actually approved and did not approve. Gensler, Pierce, and Ueda all approved it, and 2 dissented and did not approve. It was Gary Gensler who was actually the tying vote, which was surprising a little bit, especially with the circle that he runs around. I got to tell you, Gary, when he was on CNBC, he did not look too happy, and he did not look too rested. I'm sure he had to do things he didn't want to do, but he said a couple of things. First of all, he respects the law, and they lost numerous cases, so here we are. But the thing that I want to ask, and this sound, I'm glad you're here before we get into the ETF stuff, is what message are people hearing? Are they hearing the message that Gensler and the SEC and Elizabeth Warren are pulling out, which is this is all, we approve it because of law, but Bitcoin's only good for illicit activity like money laundering, sanction evasion, terrorism. And he didn't just say it here. I mean, he said it when he actually came out and said the same thing of like, this is my statement on why I approve this. And then, of course, Elizabeth Warren took to Twitter and said the same thing. Thank God for community notes, as it says, hey, there's already robust laws right now, and you say that there's no KYC and AML, but that's totally untrue. So then the question then becomes is, what is the message that people are hearing? This message? Are there new people coming in going, I like what I see? Or are they like calling you, Simon, and going, hey, this Bitcoin thing sounds awesome. How do I get in?
Yeah. Yeah, I had a lot of calls from people that were asking, there's an ETF, can I buy it through the broker? And I was like, yeah, sure you can. Putting all of that together, we talked about it a lot over the years. Gensler has always actually been a Bitcoin maxi. Yeah. So he's always believed in Bitcoin. He used to teach about Bitcoin and blockchain in MIT. And he always used to talk about how Bitcoin was commodity-like. And he would always question whether Ethereum is or isn't a security. He would always make that distinction. Now, when he hit the SEC, he took a very hardline stance and made a lot of enemies in the crypto sphere. The Commodities and Futures Trading Commission, CFTC, they wanted to regulate Bitcoin as a commodity. They wanted the business. The SEC was taking a hard stance on what is a security and what isn't a security. They went through several different court cases. Then you've got the money laundering side. That's not a securities issue. That's a FinCEN, financial crimes issue. All the exchanges have had to register with FinCEN and comply with all those requirements for a long time. So there's nothing new there. Really, we've just got that clarity now. So the Bitcoin ETF became that moment when they couldn't really come up with any more excuses. They tried as much as they could. A Bitcoin ETF is squarely a security. It trades on a stock market. It obviously the operators you need to have custodians. And the whole industry really came together for something that the ETF had to be approved, and you had all these different court cases. So now there's a bunch of players. There's 11 ETFs that were launched on the same day. Right. I'm pretty impressed with how they did that. I hear that that's not normal. I've never been around for an ETF launch and watched it in real time. So I've just been learning from other people that have been involved in ETF launches. But it's unusual to have 11 different competing. That's really nice for competition. The company that got all the volume was actually the one that's going to be contributing to Bitcoin core development with a percentage of their fees. And there was this big race around getting the most competitive fees. And we got approximately $4.6 billion of trading volume, about $750 million of inflows. But there was one bogey, and that is that we needed to figure out what was going to happen with GBTC, right? Which is a subsidiary of Digital Currency Group. There's all sorts of, hangovers within that group. There was court cases that they won, and they got to convert GBTC, which is an expensive product that deviates from the Bitcoin price, to an ETF, which should track the price more clearly. We had this closing of the difference between the price of the product versus the price of Bitcoin. And that led to a big outflows because there was almost like shareholder revolts when during the peak of the crypto craziness, it got to about a 50% discount to Bitcoin. And then people really enjoyed that trade all the way up as it got to ETF. And now a bunch of people are taking their money out of there.
That's perfectly said. And I know that, and we're going to talk about the Twitter spaces you were in recently, but for the people that have been here, because Simon, remind everybody, how long ago did you get into Bitcoin?
So I spoke at the first Bitcoin conference in 2011 when Bitcoin at that conference crashed from $30 to $3. And I bought my first Bitcoin as a Casacius coin, which was a physical Bitcoin with 5 Bitcoins on it for about £25.
Oh my God. See, and okay, so I want everybody to remember that as we move forward, because again, the people that have been here for a while, they're like, you know, down 10%, whatever it is, right? We're kind of used to that. But if you're new to this area and you expected something different, the market has a way of kicking you right in the teeth if you expect something to happen. And that's just how it is. The only mainstay against that is time and staying around the market and just getting things, you know, somewhat right. I think there's like a sentiment, and we're going to go over this. I see a comment from Michael S. This is a complete ETF clown show. And I think there's some people out there like, hey, I heard from everybody that this is going to be up only and it's going to be fantastic. And of course, I was always kind of shying away from that because, I mean, I think it would be good, but like I said, you never know, which would kind of lead me to this next point. Let's talk about this, which is, you know, I remember in 2017, that's when I got in. I didn't get in during the cool time when, you know, all the cool kids were there, like Simon, getting it for like $20. But I remember in 2017, you know, we came around. I was like, oh, this could be pretty good. Then we launched some Bitcoin futures and people shorted the living tar out of it. And this is, you know, we saw a big decline. Today, we can see that in 24 hours, not too great. And this is the spot ETF. Now, if we can zoom out a little bit, let's take a look at 7 days. You can see that it's kind of flat and sideways. People took their jump. And then, of course, now down we go. 14 days. All right. It's about kind of where it was. 30 days. Okay. Now we're talking 90 days. And of course, if we kind of like zoom out, and that's the whole thing. That's the whole beauty of this whole thing. And what Simon was getting to is about the time and just being in there. That's why I want to bring that point to it. But here's the thing. Today, Simon, you said there was $6.5 billion flows?
I think we had 4.3 billion on day one. And I got to be honest, I haven't even looked on day two. So where we're at, I think we're at about 6 or something.
Yeah. And just like you said, here was the big, like you said, you called it the bogey, which is grayscale, because everybody wants to get out at some point. They're like, hey, I've had this tied in for so much, I couldn't actually get, you know, offload it. And now people are offloading their grayscale, not their shares, now their actual, you know, physical Bitcoin, and they're kind of coming back and forth. But you were on a Twitter Spaces and it got pretty heated. I listened to it for about 20 minutes and I was like, oh, I'll just ask Simon. So it looks like there's like a divide. Some people say this was a win. Some people say this was a loss. Where are we here in the grand scheme of things?
Yeah, you know, it's this was so hyped up. So by background, you know, 2013, the Winklevoss twins wanted to create a Bitcoin ETF. 10 years later, we get one. Yeah. And this really was a massive, 2024 was is a massive shift in the supply demand economics of Bitcoin. Yeah. And so, you know, people, I mean, you know, this is the 4th halving cycle that I've been through. And every time Bitcoin halves, which is an event that will happen later this year in about April, May, people think that it's this event that everyone talks about. And so people are like, oh, should I buy it now? And then once it happens, should I sell it and I make a bunch of money? ETF is a similar type of thing. Even when I worked in TradFi, when I worked in trading as a market maker, you know, we used to manipulate markets based upon we used to have these things called magazines back then, and there was like Investors Chronicle where you would turn the page and there would be these stock picks, really? And as soon as we knew it was going to come out, people would be buying it, and it would always be a buy the news, sell the event type of thing. And Bitcoin ETF was like that. Yeah, you've got to give it, you know, the real change in here is allowing the supply demand to break out. So we got Bitcoin halving. So the supply of new Bitcoins that are created every 10 minutes as a reward for miners, that halves every 4 years. That's going to happen in April. So, you know, I don't know where we're at right now. I haven't looked. I think we're probably at about over 19.5 million Bitcoins have been mined already. There's only 21 million. There's a race for the last million or 1.5 million, wherever we are. And so that changes the supply side of Bitcoin. The only way to get those is to buy them from somebody that's willing to sell them to you. And so this is where the ETF comes in. The ETF is a new bunch of money that over time, you've got all the registered investment advisors. They're going to be given the Bitcoin pitch. You've got all these eventual, once volume and liquidity picks up, all these pension funds, they're going to be looking at their pension. There'll be 60% bonds receiving about 5% return. There'll be about, you know, 40% in stocks that will be receiving, if we get quantitative easing, about 20% returns historically. And there'll be this little allocation to, you know, commodities. And, you know, you tend to have a little allocation to gold. And now Larry Fink has told everybody, the founder of BlackRock, that there's this flight to quality. We've got wartime economics. We've got quantitative easing. We've got bank failures that we had last year. We've got all these different things that Bitcoin helps. We've got, inflation. What will that? Well, all of that points towards put some of that in Bitcoin. Now, if at the end of the year, Bitcoin has done what it's always done over the last 14 years, which is averaged about 114% returns every year, if you're willing to hold it over a 4-year cycle, which is what people should be doing. Can't give financial advice, but that's what's historically has worked. Then suddenly, you're getting 5% on your bonds, 20% on your stocks, and 114% on your Bitcoin.
Yeah.
It starts really putting to shame. And then the funds that are receiving those higher returns, they start to compete with the ones that are receiving the lower returns. And the way that Bitcoin was designed is this has been the story of the last 14 years. And so this is the institutions that will be finding that. Now, does that mean that the ETF launches on day one and we get a little bit of Gary Gensler Bitcoin style launching where everything's a comedy and a shit show, as it always is with Bitcoin? Does that mean, that we're going to suddenly get that impact in day one? Well, no, it wasn't. And so this should be a lovely little lesson for people. I have no doubt that the economics will play through. But if you're just looking to trade, then you're not approaching Bitcoin in the right way.
You know what? It's a good point. And it's a hard point to take when you get in initially, because you hear about how much it appreciates over the last decade or 12 years or 13 years. And you want those, because I remember in 2017, I go, well, I mean, it went from, when I got in, it was $8,000, $8,500 to be exact. And I thought, well, it's went from 1,000 to 8,500. And, John McAfee said it's going to $1 million. So that guy never lies. So it's going to happen. He
also had a pretty good bet, didn't he?
He had a great bet, and he lost. And God rest his soul. But it didn't work out for him too well on that bet. Just like me in this ridiculous shirt. But for everybody who here is new, this is why I appreciate when Simon comes on to bring in this wisdom and kind of rein everything in. That whole thing you said about 4-year cycle. I was listening to Preston Pish, excellent speaker, and talking about Bitcoin, and he laid it out for me that made it so clear about real estate, because me and my wife love real estate. And he said, if you just look at it as 4 years and just go over it, it beats everything. And he says, talks about indexes, talks about precious metals, commodities, and real estate by far. And I was like, I think Preston's full of it. But I have to tell you, when I took a look at our holdings that we had, like here's an example. I did this last Sunday. We paid, it was $260,000 for one of our condos here in Puerto Rico. And that was in July 24th, 2020. If I'd have put $260,000, not into the condo, but just in the Bitcoin, I'd be at $1.8 million roughly. And I took a look at that. I'm like, this is the problem with people's views, just looking at it in a 4-year way. So again, Simon, anything else you can add to that? I think it's helpful for the people that are looking at this ETF, like, what the hell just happened? So anything else you got for that? Definitely, let people know.
Yeah, just some real simple rules. Firstly, and this is hard to get your head around, but value your wealth in Bitcoin. Price everything in Bitcoin. Price real estate to Bitcoin. Price stocks to Bitcoin. Price gold to Bitcoin. Price everything and get your head around thinking in Bitcoin and pricing in Bitcoin. Once you got your head around that, you know that the lower the price goes, if you're earning fiat currency, the more you can buy, and the higher the price goes, the more fiat wealth you have. So what I've got is a real simple rule. Every single month, no matter what, own a bit more Bitcoin than you did the previous month. Do that for 4 years. I guarantee you'll never change that habit for the rest of your life. And that's just a simple thing that everyone can do.
I got to tell you, it makes sense. This is, sorry, and like when we're talking about this is another thing that I found as well. There's a website, everybody, the link's in the description. It's pricedinbitcoin21.com. And I just showed you gold. Everybody loves gold. I own gold. I own precious metals. Simon here owns a bunch of other things that, outside of Bitcoin. But if we just take a look at that, and then I showed this before, a United States median new home price. And if we take fiat over that and we take a look at just 5 years, how things are going, you can see that a house you know, back in 2019, it would, let me get this into, let's just do a straight Bitcoin, not Satoshis, make things easier. A median average house is 320,000. It would cost you 93 Bitcoin back in 2019. Now the prices for a house is 418,000. It costs you less than 10. And you can go through this website and look at every single thing that's priced into Bitcoin and what Simon is. Again, don't trust us. Do your own research and move from there. So Simon, this led me to my next thing. And we talked about Bitcoin. And I know that, of course, you know, you've got you're very successful business, Bank of the Future, and you've got into small things like Kraken, Bitfinex, Secure. I mean, I was going through this and I was like, it just kept scrolling and going through. Tell us, besides Bitcoin itself, is there any other plays that you get into for like individual wise, or is it just Bitcoin? Because I think like layer twos could be do pretty well, like a Stacks, like this Satoshi VM. It's a ZK rollup layer 2, or we've got these new things called ordinals. And since you've been around for so long, I just kind of want to get your opinion on these other aspects of Bitcoin, or is it just Bitcoin only and then traditional stuff?
No. So once you get more advanced, and you know, I started with that simple rule, which is I was deep in debt and then I wanted to own more Bitcoin every month. That worked for me. That transformed my financial position. And as I went there, I wanted to invest more and more into the companies that were going to make Bitcoin great. And so those companies like Coinbase, they couldn't find VC funding. And so, you know, we co-invested with others. We put together a platform where others could invest. Some of those companies did, you know, about of the 100 I invested in, about 10 of them became unicorns. About 20 of them went bust. The rest are still trying to see if they're going to be successful. And about 2 or 3 of them ended up outright scams, which is why you're wearing that T-shirt. Because that was one of the scams I invested in. But, you know, here's the idea. Never, remember the simple rule. Always have more Bitcoin every month than the previous month. Yeah. But take a percentage of your Bitcoin if you want and go crazy. And so that's what I always did. I put a little percentage of my Bitcoin and invested it in the Ethereum ICO. Because I'm, you know, got these little percentages and I manage it like that, I don't want to get too complicated. But then once you get further and further down the cycle, you know, as your wealth increases, you can start saying, well, I'll put a percentage here. And I'll put a percentage which I know, or within my heart, I believe is never going to outperform Bitcoin. But I just want my safety bucket. And as you get older, you want more safety. So you put some in gold that preserves your wealth. And then you just keep going through. So my message to people is start simple. The worst thing is not starting. Own more Bitcoin each month than the previous month. And if you want to take a percentage of your Bitcoin and buy some ordinals, I've invested in all sorts of shit, all sorts of scams, all sorts of great things. But I really don't like going on and telling people about them, because then other people will follow it. And I'm okay losing it because I'm managing my portfolio. And I'm okay with that. And I know other people will come along and say, what's the next Bitcoin killer? Let me put all my money in that. And then they end up getting wrecked on something. And that's the problem.
Yeah. You know what? It's a great way to say it, because some people, they look at, they'll say like, well, Simon, it's Bitcoin only. And I'm like, no, he does other things. I'm pretty sure. So it's good to see that. But the big takeaway here is, of course, we can't get financial advice. We're not financial advisors. When we talk about these things, you can say, hey, look, you know, that I've done this for years and years and years. I take a very, very small percentage, and essentially I'm spraying and praying, and hopefully this actually works out. Like you said, I've invested in 100 and 10 worked out. And that's kind of like how investing really goes, especially in this super volatile market that we are actually into. So everybody out there, like, this is some of the reasons why I don't like to talk about the things that I get into, because people are like, well, Rob told me about tomato coin and I got it and didn't really take off. Well, I'm sorry, it's just how it is. And then, of course, great piece there. Now, if you're okay, let's shift gears to a little Celsius talk. And before we get into that, everybody's been asking for this. I understand. I would ask for this too. So there's this shirt I'm wearing. Everybody can see this, right? Very beautiful, beautiful shirt. And I wear this happily because I lost this bet and the Bitcoin ETF was approved. But I would not wear the I Heart Just Mashinsky. It's actually says I Heart Alex Ponzi Mashinsky, which is essentially what it is. And again, low quality t-shirt for a low quality person. So let's just break into just a little bit of the Celsius, because Simon, you've done some great stuff, especially with the people that have fought through this. I myself have lost 6 figures, but kind of bring us up to speed with the creditors, the earn, the loans, and things like that. And also, there's a link in the description. If you're a Celsius creditor looking to recover your lost funds, I recommend that you go to Simon's website, simondixon.com/recovery, and find out everything that's going on. Register, follow him again on his YouTube channel, also on Twitter. You can get the best up-to-date information. But Simon, I know you've been asked this question tons of times, but can you just give us like a quick update about what's going on?
Yeah, I mean, let me give the background and tie the topics together. So
Sure.
You remember I said about taking a percentage of my Bitcoin? One of the ideas that I had is because I was investing in an equity portfolio, and I really liked the thought of there was a company called Salt Lending where you could borrow against your Bitcoin and not pay tax. And this is no recommendations, by the way. You know, we had extreme a blow up of the whole industry in 2022, and I paid severely, as did Rob. But one of the ideas I had is, so we did an equity round, and this guy that is I love Mijinski, he committed complete fraud. So in 2020, this all came out. I didn't know this until it came out in the court filings, because now he's September this year, he's going to be facing up to 115 years in prison. He took over the trading desk in 2020 and shorted Bitcoin and lost about 15 million of client money, which was a big part of the balance sheet at the time. And he came to a company called Tether and myself, and we decided to use Banks of the Future to pull together and allow people to purchase equity. And so he pitched it to, you know, our technology could be used. I invested myself, and he didn't tell us. So he just fraudulently didn't tell us that there was a hole in the balance sheet. We raised 20 million. He literally did it from his own customers that wanted to buy his shares. So he lost his clients' money and then used Banks of the Future to fraudulently not tell them that he'd lost it and the company was insolvent, and then raised the money to fill the hole from his customers by selling shares in his company. Then on the years after, he never gave us any financial statements and went on to lose billions of dollars and withdraw loads of millions, tens of millions, and create a complete pump and dump scheme with his own token, where he took about $600 million of client money to pump the price of his token so that then he could sell the token. And it was a classic Ponzi scheme. That all blew up in 2022. But my idea was, why don't I take a bit of my Bitcoin and rather than sell it, borrow against it? So I was experimenting with that. And what I wanted to do was figure out, how much Bitcoin do I put in to generate yield to pay the interest on the loan? And it was a really funky, you know, tax efficient structure. But it was my risk capital, as I said. So even if it blew up, it wasn't going to go too wrong. Yeah, basically, I became one of the largest creditors in the Celsius case. And that was the history. And this time last year, I think it was July the 13th, 2022, I came on your channel and told everyone the story of what had happened. And so we've been in the bankruptcy ever since. And it has been a horrific journey. But I'm a real financial geek, and I learned a lot and kind of hated the process, but at the same time learned a lot. So I just got in this role of reading over 4,000 documents that were submitted to the court. We've had, you know, the average creditor, there was 650,000 people that got scammed in this thing. It was, you know, $3 billion was lost. So everyone got lost half of their money. You know, we are now at the end of the journey. And here's what I'd love to do. There was so much that happened in that year and a half. But in the end, and this is a lesson for everybody, whether you're a Celsius creditor or not, there were only 2 decisions that mattered in the end. So first one is because I had experience from Mt. Gox and Bitfinex. Mt. Gox was a really bad bankruptcy where you only had about 10% of your Bitcoin left. Bitfinex was one of the most successful bankruptcy recoveries that we've seen, that we worked on. And the reason for it is because we kept the Bitcoin. So while all the process was going through, I lobbied really early to make sure that the estate kept the Bitcoin and didn't sell it. Now, FTX, BlockFi, they all sold it. They sold the Bitcoin at the bottom of the market. BlockFi even sold the Bitcoin at the bottom of the market and put it in Silicon Valley Bank, which ended up going bank. You know, and just these really bad moves. And FTX is the same thing. So we won that decision. There's a really scammy part of bankruptcy where when they file bankruptcy, if you've got a Bitcoin, they no longer owe you a Bitcoin. They owe you a dollar claim based upon what the price was at the time. But we kept the Bitcoin. So forward about a year and a half. The price of Bitcoin goes up so much that we're almost at the stage where even though we're only going to get about 25% of our Bitcoin back, we could be made 100% whole because the dollar value of Bitcoin. Remember what we were talking about, valuing in Bitcoin. When you value these claims in Bitcoin, suddenly you become close to 100% whole. There's a big problem though. I had the experience in the Mt. Gox bankruptcy. As soon as we hit the point where the creditors were going to be 100% whole, the money, then the upside of Bitcoin goes to the next class of creditors. So you have shareholders, you have all these other people, you even have Mishinsky in that list of people. And so I had to share with the bankruptcy court that we're messing around with this plan. And the plan was just, you know, messing around. We spent $350 million just trying to get out of bankruptcy and resolve all the issues. But I presented to the court on the 21st of December. I filed a letter and I said, if we do not get out of bankruptcy right now, they were trying to resolicit. The US government had a claim. They had a $4.7 billion claim. They were creating delays, saying you need to revote. That's another 6 months delay. It was spending $20 million a month on all these just bureaucracy. But I said, if we don't get out, this will be the first bankruptcy in US history where our Bitcoin upside, because we kept it, will end up going to the next class. The judge took it really seriously, found a way, the lawyers found a way, and we are now, the plan was approved on the 27th of December. And what that means is that essentially we're going to get close to 100% of our dollar value back, like between 70 and 100%, depending on the Bitcoin. But because we're getting out before 100%, we get all these different, we get to keep our upside on the crypto, but we also get to take all the stuff that Mishinsky purchased with our Bitcoin, like 120,000 ASIC miners. And we get some free public equity in a company that may drive an additional recovery. If we had got above 55,000 Bitcoin, that would have all gone to someone else, and we would literally, our Bitcoin upside would have gone to someone else.
So awesome. So awesome. Because like I see people in the chats, like Elizabeth Frenshaw says, I lost everything. I'm 67. And I got a friend here, Diego, here in Puerto Rico. He's like, you know, and he's a young guy. He said, I put my whole life savings in because it was like a savings account. That's what I thought it was. That's what it was marketed to me by the Celsius team. And of course, now here we are. So here's a question though, timelines. What are we looking at here for people to get things back? And I know there's different ones. There's different parts for if it's earned versus if it's custody versus if you have loans and things like that. But what kind of time frame are we looking at? We're looking at Q2 as this kind of rolls out, and how's this work?
No, so here's what you need to know. If you are a Celsius creditor, you are going to receive, we're going to get a plan effective date on the 31st of January, and there may be a couple of weeks delay, give or take. Okay. But I've been speaking with the Celsius team. I'm going to push them in that way. They're all really committed to going that way. So on the 31st of January, we will know exactly the percentage that you're going to get back. And shortly after, and I'm talking shortly, even on the same day potentially, if you're in the US, you're going to have to open an account with PayPal, and your crypto is going to be deposited there. If you're not from the US, you're going to have an account with Coinbase, and your crypto is going to be deposited there. If you can't open an account with Coinbase or PayPal, then you're going to be sent a dollar check, unfortunately.
But
but that's that's going to happen. Now, don't panic. If you go to that webpage that I told you, simondixon.com/recovery, I'll do everything live with you. There's a membership portal there. It's completely complimentary. It's free. And if you want to go really geeky into all the details, you can. But if all you want to do is join a webinar with me, where I'll just be withdrawing my money and showing how I receive all the other stuff we're entitled to. We're entitled to a bunch more stuff over the next 2 years. But immediately in February 2024, you're going to get, approximately 25% of your crypto back. And if you had stable coins, you're going to be getting like 70 or 80% of your value back. And so, yeah, that's going to happen. So you need to be ready for that. And then from there, we'll just share a 2-year journey. You're going to wake up one day and you'll have some shares in a NASDAQ listed company if things go well. You'll also have, we'll sue Maszynski. And if we can get a chunk of Maszynski's wealth, you'll get a check in the post. Hey. We're also, we've got a professional fund manager that's going to be managing a bunch of these, Matic positions and all these other things that we got. So just sit back and relax. You'll get that distribution and put together a plan. We got the best we could, given the fact that we were scammed. And then in September, the Maszynski trial will happen. We've got the ability to, any funds we can recover from the perpetrators of the crimes. Daniel Leone is another one. He was the co-founder. He started a new AI startup with the Prime Minister's Office of Israel. We've got a claim against him, and Nuke, who built the tech, we've got a claim against him. They all withdrew their money and bought their houses and all that stuff. We're going to receive all that money over the coming years. And every time you get a new check, you can buy some Bitcoin, take a little percentage of it, invest it, value your wealth in Bitcoin. We'll figure out what the recoveries are, and we can share the journey together, because I'll be with you till the end.
Awesome. Man, Simon, I got to tell you, for everybody who doesn't know, Simon took a lot of shit when he went on these Twitter spaces, and he was attacked by essentially the sycophants and the people that were really close to the Celsius and the Maszynski pieces of trash that were out there. And he took it. And I got to tell you, like, I am a big believer in stoicism. I've never seen somebody take criticism so well. Like, someone was just calling you like a big, you're like, Simon, you're just a big, and you're like, well, it may be, but if you look at the facts, and then I was like, oh my God, this guy's a saint. So Simon, again, thanks for doing such hard work. It really paid off. Goodwill happens. And of course, there is this thing called karma. And these things that happen always come back to you. So Simon, I'm glad I know you. I'm glad you're my friend. All right.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, I ended up with one stalker that I think is going to be with me for the rest of my life. And he turned up on court yesterday. I gave a 20-minute speech around how I'm just a complete scammer and everything. He's been with me this whole journey. And then he brings in his other Maszynski millions. And there's a whole conspiracy theory that I think was created by Maszynski's wife, where I was paid by SBF in order to take down Celsius and short the token, and then paid Max Kaiser and Corey Klippstein and Mike Alfred in order to create loads of FUD. And then FTX and Maszynski got fired, all because apparently it was my fault. And he was a saint all along, and everything he did was right. And because Maszynski got taken away, everyone now needs to come to me, and I stole all the money. And yeah, it was an interesting journey. But that's like a little fringe group of about 5 to 10 people that I seem to be the hangover that I get left with. Thank God for Twitter blocking.
Yeah, well, it's the trolls that are always the loudest, but thankfully you've got hundreds of thousands of people that appreciate and love you. So we're here for you, man. So everybody, there's some other questions in the comment section. We can go through those, but just as a reminder, I linked Simon's website in the description. Definitely check this out. And I know, Simon, you guys do a bunch of AMAs regardless. You'll do it sometimes you do it on Twitter, sometimes you do it on YouTube. So just follow him here. And then also there's a link in the description as well. Really follow Simon on Twitter. I think it's the best location to get like the most up-to-date stuff. So yeah. So Simon, do you got time for like a 10-minute Q&A, or you got to take off?
Yeah, no, let's do it. But just on the website, the reason I created that is because I've made a pact. I'm off once we're out, 31st of January. I'm no longer going to use the word Celsius, and no one's going to see me hosting Twitter Spaces on Celsius. And I'm not going to be uploading anything on YouTube about Celsius. I'm just going to be doing normal content like you, Rob. But I still want to fulfill my obligations there and share with what I'm doing. So in there, I'll be doing like little private webinars, but all my followers, like literally the Celsius people were grateful. But the vast majority of my following are just like, please stop talking about Celsius. I don't want to watch another video about this stuff. And so I just had to separate that and kind of get back to what people knew me before I got scammed by Majinski.
Perfect. Perfect. I will join you in that one as well. I will take my shirt and just make sure I remove it to what it really was. I love trolls. All right, everybody. So that concludes the part for the news and what's going on. Simon, again, thanks for stopping by. We appreciate it. Now we're going to do like a little 10-minute Q&A, and then we'll go from there. And because who knows what Simon's got going on. So I love Simon. I need him now. That sounds like a song coming out from the 80s. Let's see. Michael. With this Celsius wind down, will the convenience class get any of the upside or just then the liquid coins?
That's a really good question. I did actually ask team about that, but basically anyone that had a small claim relative to other claims, like less than $5,000, for some people that were in Celsius, that's a lot. It's a lot of their savings. And so they were going to get 70% locked in. But now if the recovery goes above 70%, I don't actually know the answer to that yet, but I will get you the answer because you may get a little bit more with everyone else. So follow along and I'll make sure I get that answer to you. But it's not clear yet.
Yeah, it's not clear. Well, you know, answers come out, but I'm pretty happy just with that because like when we had a meetup here in Puerto Rico and I saw Diego, I'm like, hey man, I just was listening to there's another resource for everybody, Aaron Bennett. Simon really goes into details sometimes, and he'll tell you he will. But Aaron's got a good way of like synthesizing what he's talking about and kind of breaking it down. But that's another one to follow. When I talked to Diego though, I'm like, hey, did you hear about? You know, it looks like you guys are gonna get some things back here in the first quarter. And he's like, you gotta be kidding me. I'm like, no, it actually happened. And he said this. He goes, it was probably Simon Dixon fighting for us. I was like, yeah, that's pretty much it. All right. So let's see. Anybody have any other questions? Mostly it's just everybody loves Simon. Isn't that great? Isn't that great when you do things out of the kindness of your heart to move things back? You don't ask for money, you just kind of do it. And then it just comes back to you tenfold. That's essentially how the universe works, I believe. But,
yeah, I gotta be, you know, I completely agree with that. But, you know, I had a lot of money on the line. So I was going to do all this work anyway for me. Because I do genuinely want to maximize my investments, and when I can help and be useful, I will. So, you know, I always like combining self-interest with helping a lot of people along the way.
Yeah,
I couldn't do this for FTX because I'm not a creditor, and I couldn't sit there doing what I did for Celsius. I had a crazy idea one time. I was thinking about buying a claim in FTX. And I thought, no, I don't want another 2 years of this shit. Bitcoin is simple, man. You don't need to do anything. But yeah, these bankruptcies, they're not for the lighthearted.
Dude, that's the truth. Yeah, and like so what you said about, you know, like you were going to do it anyhow. You were going to do it anyhow, but you didn't have to take all the shit that you did in the spaces. You didn't have to go through the stalking. You didn't have to go through the negativity on Twitter and everything else. You didn't have to do that. You could have just sat back and like, I want to get my money back. But no, you had to you stuck your neck out. You did the hard things and the universe will reward you. I truly believe that. Let's see. Oh, Red Panda Pie, one of the new moderators. Hello, Panda. I remember a video of Rob. He invited a gentleman expert in taxes. I don't remember the name, but there was a question. As a matter of fact, in 15 minutes, that same expert, Shihan Chandrasekhara, he's a CPA that specializes in crypto. We're going to be talking about things. But Simon, maybe you know this. The tax, I don't know if you know, but any tax implications for these rates that BlackRock and Fidelity and everybody else is charging? Because I mean, it's pretty low, but are there taxes that people have to pay on those fees? And how's that? Do you know how that works?
Yeah. So firstly, I haven't read any of the prospectuses. I've got to be honest with that. But normally what happens is there's within the fund, the ETF, they have tax implications as they buy, sell, and all that type of stuff. So that's normally rolled into their equation. But if you're, in terms of your personal taxes, it's just like buying a stock or share. So you have a cost basis where you started, and you have a cost basis where you exited, and the broker that you work, whatever you purchase through, should be able to give you information in a way that you can share with your tax advisor, or do that. But just think of it just like a share. And then within all these ETFs, they have the internal tax implications, and they take care of all that. And so, digging deep into the fees and how they're structured and how they're slightly different is worth doing if you want to get geeky, because they all are slightly different.
Gotcha. Yeah. And guys, I'll have Xian on in a little bit. We'll do a recording and I'll let you know when it comes out. Here's a question from Kat with a K. Does Simon answer questions on his site, or does he have people helping him? Probably like, if you have like a ticket support, but I think you do it kind of live on these different shows that you do, right?
Yeah. So that particular website, no support, because it's not a business. If you're at Bank to the Future, we have a whole support team. But if you're on the simondixon.com/recovery, you can ask questions under every video, but I'm not answering them. It's the community that's answering them. And there is no support, because it's not a company. I'm not employing anyone there. But I do webinars, and so you can come on the webinar and just benefit from everyone else asking questions.
Yeah. And then like, if you guys are like, well, I missed a question, I got a question, just go over here to Aaron Bennett. Just, Aaron, I think I'll link him in the description as well, but he does breakdown and has some great answers. And of course, I believe you and Aaron talk every so often in these different spaces. So he's mostly up to date. I mean,
Aaron is incredibly talented at taking what would take me 1 to 2 hours, because I'm so into the detail. And then he'll just release a video for the TikTok generation in 5 minutes that explains everything you need to know.
Yeah, he's really good. He's really good at condensation of information, and we'll take it. And then lastly, before we get out of here, are Rob and Simon going to Coin Bureau Live in 2024? Simon, you want to go back?
Oh, yeah. It was Rob that invited me in 2023, and we had a blast. So, I'd love to go over the other side of the pond, not too far away from the Isle of Man. And, if Guy wants to have me, then we should do it again. It was fun.
All right. I'll let you know. Well, it's like he's going to say no. All right, everybody. So look, we know where to go. There's links in the description. We talked about it meticulously. Follow Simon on YouTube, Twitter, and then his website to get all the information. Simon, again, thanks a lot, buddy, for coming on. We really appreciate this one. This was a great one.
Awesome. It's always good. Thanks, Rob.
All right. All right, buddy. We'll see you on the next one. Thanks for stopping by. Like and subscribe. Adios. Adios.